Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome John Lawyer here. Now, he is an ex-soldier, and he is a spiritual leader now. So we're going to get to know him, have a great conversation. Let's kick this off right, man. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. I joined the Army right out of high school, became a counterintelligence special agent, spent about 12 of my first 15 years as an adult on and off in deserts in Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, both as a soldier and then as a civilian, essentially doing the same thing. Spent most of that time with my wife, so she kind of went on this journey with me, which was kind of interesting. And saw a lot, did a lot. It was good times, it was bad times, but it was an interesting journey. And then we came home from Afghanistan after spending about 6.5 years there consecutive. And I was, kind of broken, trying to heal, and spent about 7 years doing that, kind of just lost a little bit. And, after that, I a couple of years ago, about almost exactly 2 years ago, I had kind of this moment of understanding, clarity, whatever you want to call it. People call it different things. And, kind of saw the universe as this one thing where we're all the same thing and we're all connected. And I wasn't on a spiritual path, and so I wasn't prepared for it. And so I kind of wanted to understand it. And so, read a lot, looked around the internet, and wanted to be able to talk to people about it. And I knew that I didn't want to help people as much as I wanted to help people help themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I would like to kind of establish some type of online community where people could come share their stories, their journeys, and come from whatever perspective, come as you are, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, it doesn't matter, atheist, and talk about it and figure out what we can learn from each other and what we can teach each other. And so every day for the two years after that, I worked towards that goal, and I've finally launched our community last month. But just a place for people to be where there's not trolls and too much noise. And I think that there might be a place for smaller online communities in our society moving ahead, where people can kind of have a community and have a sense of things like that. And that's the short of it.
For you, what was your transition like? I mean, you go from being a civilian to being a soldier to back into the civilian world again.
I think I love that question. It's the hardest thing I ever did. I think that, that the transition from soldier to contractor was easy because I was doing the same job essentially. So, and then having that time where I was in Afghanistan for 6 straight years in Kandahar, I loved my job. I loved the brotherhood and the sisterhood of it. And it was my identity. It's who I was. I mean, to my core, and when you're doing the job I was doing was, it was asymmetric warfare. I was responsible for intel and ops for a unit that had to keep Kandahar airfield moving. We had planes landing and taking off like every 30 seconds. It was the busiest runway on the planet at the time. And we had to go out and make sure that the airfield wasn't attacked and compromised. So, and it kind of takes an extremist to catch an extremist, so it was almost a religion, as weird as that sounds. And so I was fully dedicated to it. So coming home and leaving that behind, I didn't have an identity. I didn't really even know who I was anymore. And I found that I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. I found that it's weird. Like, there's a lot of the support the soldiers and all that stuff, and I appreciate that, but people also don't really want to talk about it. And so it was lonely. And thankfully my wife had experienced the same thing, so we could kind of help each other out. So it was good that we could help each other out. And then it was, sometimes bad because we were both kind of busted, Yeah. So yeah, it was difficult. I would say making that transition is something that really didn't happen for a long time. Like I wasn't able, it took me years to kind of get to a point where I could even start.
Well, when I was younger, I partied, drank, drugs, the whole 9 yards. And then I met someone who invited me to church. I got saved, and man, I went full force. I even preached for about 5 years. Then something happened. I had a fallout, and I went right back to the same old life that I was in before, and kind of wandered around aimlessly for years, and went through a divorce and fought, man, with the alcoholism and the drug addiction. And then I got remarried, and my wife is she's a spiritual person, and she encouraged me to get back on my spiritual path. And I know, since I started praying and meditating and asking for wisdom, instead of asking for a new car, asking for wisdom, I would get vivid dreams, and when I'd wake up, I knew what the message was. Did you have any experiences like that?
I think so. And I love hearing about other people's experiences too, like yours, because I think there is so much overlap. And yeah, I there were times where I got lucky in one of my VA therapists. The VA gets a lot of heat, and a lot of it's deserved. But the VA very well may have saved my life, and they matched me with this therapist, and she happened to just randomly be into Eastern medicine, and she taught hypnosis to me, and she taught me mindfulness meditation. And yeah, I think through those acts of mindfulness meditation and stuff like that, it kind of put me on a path I didn't even realize I was on. And then, once I kind of I was walking my own path, and I was aware and intentional about it. Yeah, I think prayer or meditation, it's all the same thing, right? Like, it's all connecting us with, I mean, some people see it as a higher person or a higher being. I think it's ourself, or the divine inside, which is also, whether it's Christ consciousness or the Brahmin or the Hindus or whatever, yeah, I think that introspection gives you some kind of like divine perspective, or perspective of oneness, or whatever you want to say it.
I personally believe in God, but I
Sure.
believe God is the universe,
Yeah.
and we're all connected through that, and we're all of a like mind, and we're trying to get to that same endpoint. And you go through different levels where it's a different frequency. I don't know if you believe in the frequency thing, but I do.
I do.
And I see the world in a whole different way. And like I was telling you about the dreams, I had one about a week ago that shook me to my core. I mean, literally, I woke up where I felt like my life had taken a different path, and I saw people differently and how I treat them differently. I'm not sure what your practices are or what you teach folks, but maybe you can get a little more in depth into it.
I think that I love that bit about how we treat folks. I think that what I want to teach people is that it doesn't matter how dark it is, or if you think that you're in whole darkness and complete darkness, that there's still light inside of you. And that even if you think that you're broken and you're not whole, that's just your perception. You actually are whole inside, even if you can't see it. And I think that teach people that they can be empowered in themselves. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Their path can look a lot different from mine, but maybe if I can shed some light on your path through teaching or experience that I've had, or we can relate experiences that others have had, then you can find your light again, and then light your own path to where you need to go spiritually. And I also think that we're these divine spiritual beings in this world, but we also have to live in the real world, quote unquote real world. And I think lifestyle and being grounded is incredibly important to giving yourself the time and space to be spiritual as well.
Ultimately, I believe people are looking for a place to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the hatred that some people feel is because they're protecting that specific group that they're trying to fit in with. I think if you can look outside of that, then I think you can learn to love people a lot more.
Amen. I mean, really, just we have all these tribes, right? That we're part
Mm-hmm.
of. We're part of this. We're part of the tribe of our family, the tribe of our all these identities that we have. They're all tribes,
Mm-hmm.
and I call it how I term that kind of this. There's this society's pull, and it's like this stream of unconsciousness that just pulls us down. It might be warm and easy to just float down the stream, but it's not who we are. It's who society wants us to be. It's who our tribes want us to be. And all we got to do is it's not like this deep stream or river. We just have to stand up, look around, and it's this beautiful thing around us, and we have to see that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you said about the tribes. We all are looking for that tribe. Once you expand that tribe, that's when you fit in a lot more. I mean, let's take, for example, I mean, I'm from Texas. Okay. We don't care for people like in New York and places like that, right? But when 9/11 happened, then all of a sudden we didn't look at them as being people from New York. We looked at them as fellow Americans. And then there was like a love there again.
Yeah.
But, and I told you I don't want to get into politics, but it seems politics have put us back into separate tribes again, and we don't have that oneness that we had before.
No, it's absolutely that. And yeah, I was talking about this with my dad after I kind of had my experience, and I said, I was talking about, from what when I saw the oneness in the world, I had my kind of moment. Like, say I disagree with this person over here for whatever reason. We probably only disagree about probably 10% of things in life. Mm-hmm. So that means we agree on 90%. We're the same, and so that's for most people, whether we're in the United States or we're in Asia or Africa or Europe, doesn't matter. Like, we all mostly agree that we want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want our children to be safe and taken care of. We want peace. And we can all agree on that as humans. And so if we all mostly agree on everything, how are we so disjointed and not united?
Right. Well, in what you do, are you starting to see more of a spiritual awakening starting to happen?
I think that I think yes, because I think having the access, universal and near free access to the sum of all human knowledge throughout history and on the internet is a big deal. And I think it might save us, because I have, and I have great hope in humanity, and I'm a very positive person overall. Even when I was wandering in the desert and the swamp of sadness, I still had this hope and this positivity about me. Not all the time, but yeah, I think that we are moving in a good direction. I think there's so much good in the world that people don't see.
Mm-hmm. Well, how can you stay positive when so much negativity is going on?
My wife has asked me that as well. And I tell this story sometimes, but I was in Afghanistan. I was sitting at my desk, and this young second lieutenant walks in, and my job was to kind of mentor these special agents that would come in, and he said, hey, John, like, when you get a new agent in, because I would see new agents every 6 months, and I was there for 6 years, so I saw tons of different, people. And he said, when you get a new agent in, what do you look for the most? Because he wanted to be really good at his job. He wanted to go out and do good things. And I said, and these guys would go out and collect intelligence. They would go out and do capture operations. They did all kinds of stuff. And I said, what I look for the most, I thought about it. It's kindness. I told this kid, it's kindness that I'm looking for, because if you're kind, I can work with you. And so even in war, it was kindness. And I don't know where the positivity comes from. I think that, I think there was always something within me that just told me that if I can just stay positive, then I won't let the darkness consume me, because I think when you're part of something like the military industrial complex, that you can really get lost in it. You can get lost in the hate. You can get lost in then because there's, you're taught to hate this country or this tribe or this enemy, and they're just people. The Taliban, they were just, don't get me wrong, I'm not big on Sharia law or anything, but like the Taliban were just trying to put food on the table for their family, and they were literally just farmers and just goat herders, and they didn't know any other way. So I think that when you see that darkness, you kind of have to stop and say, don't fully succumb to the negative pull.
We've been through a lot and you've seen a lot, but what's been the biggest hurdle in your life?
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to say that, yeah, it's myself. And, I kind of say that as like the lowercase myself. And then I think that you can divide that up to my, and then space self with a capital S that I found. So I'd say it's getting past yourself is one of the biggest and hardest, overcoming the mind and the ego that are overactive and overperform. I think that's part of it.
But I'm my own worst enemy, and I have the hardest time forgiving myself.
Oh yeah.
Why do we have such a hard time forgiving ourselves or even liking ourselves sometimes?
I think it's because we're brought up by our tribes, our parents, our teachers, our communities to judge, right? Judge ourselves, judge others. I think if we could just all take a moment, stop and think about judgment, and live a judgment-free life of ourselves and others, I mean, it's a tremendous thing. But we're taught it. And it's funny, I was raised Southern Baptist, and walking around with my in the 1980s as a kid with my red letter, King James Version Bible, right? And if we just followed those red letters of Jesus, I'm not a Christian now, but I feel more Christian today than I ever felt back then. And that's because Jesus taught non-judgment. The Buddha taught non-judgment. It's all, so why do we judge ourselves? Because our tribes tell us we should judge ourselves, we should judge others. I think that's part of it.
Do you work with people one-on-one or just as a group?
Our community is nonprofit, and it's we have a monthly membership. There's a free trial, but just so we can cover overhead and stuff like that. But we also do one-on-one spiritual coaching and guidance for people that need it. And all the funds go back into the community. I don't take a salary or anything like that. So but yeah, I work with people individually. I work with people, in group settings and just have discussions, because I think that's what it's about is having a discussion, having a conversation.
So can you talk on the biggest success story that, I don't know, as an individual that you've worked with or personally?
I think that one of the most important things that I do is I believe that we should find our higher purpose or our dharma, from the Hindu perspective. Like, and if we don't know it, we should find it and get a sense of it. And then once we know it, how do we align that higher purpose, that dharma, with our daily life, with our job, our vocation, how we live? And I think that I've helped some people with that, and that to see someone finally know what their purpose in life is, because I think it's different for different people. Then when you live that and you're in alignment, and it's a powerful thing to live your purpose and be aligned with it. So I think it's knowing it. So helping people through that process has been by far the most rewarding thing for me, I think. And sometimes that takes people out of their trauma as well, because, then you know why you're here.
I know what you're doing is really important, but do you have other goals?
I really, I guess my higher purpose, my dharma, is to just do this. I think that it's what I kind of want to do with my life, and I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to do it, and to I think I just want to keep doing this.
You're not gonna write any books?
I've been told I should write a book, and I think it would be an interesting story. I would like to tell my story a little bit. I would also my brothers and sisters that I started with in Afghanistan, especially, our unit was kind of a special little unit, and it did some amazing things. And, we were underfunded and all that. And we kind of did it against odds. And so I think that would be a good story. But I would like to tell that someday, and kind of included my overall journey as well.
You should do a podcast.
I do have a YouTube channel where I tell my story, and my wife she illustrates it and does all the technical stuff on it. So I tell my story, and I just talk about things like you and I are talking about a bit. Just right now it's solo, but yeah, I do that, and it's very kind of cathartic and very it's kind of a peaceful thing for me.
You could be the next Dr. Phil, but be more productive.
Sure. Yeah. I think that, it's just that's why I love people like you and shows like yours, because I think that all of us out there trying to send a message to people that there's a way, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Well, when people like us, when we tell our story, we're not looking for sympathy or anything like that. It's just a way of sharing and hoping that somebody out there can relate to what you're saying and know that there is hope and that things can get better.
Yeah, like 100%. That's absolutely what it's about.
But do you have a website?
I do. Our website is it's kishar.org, KISHAR.org. And we named it after, it's the Sumerian goddess of Mother Earth, and it also represents the line on the horizon, which I think speaks to the journey that we're all on. So you can find us there, and all of our socials are at the bottom there of that page, and that's where our community sits. And we're trying to grow it and get people to kind of find a place where they can kind of be themselves, and we can all figure this thing out.
Did you say what the name of the YouTube channel was?
That is at Peace on Your Journey, and that's the name of our YouTube channel. And it's we post videos every Sunday and Wednesday, and one of them is kind of just me talking about a spiritual subject and a journey, and the other one on Wednesday is talking about a book I've read and kind of my take on it, and that kind of thing. Usually spiritual, self-help, philosophy, something like that.
Well, I'm going to put all those links in the description to make it easier for folks to find you. But man, I really appreciate you coming on, John.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for what you're doing for the world.
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back, hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. And I know I don't say this, but could you please share this out? Because I know somebody out there could use the help that John has to offer. And it helps us out as well. But until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network